Hooks washed his hands in a bowl of warm water as Philomena, seated at the foot of Kelly's bed, swaddled Luca's newborn son in long strips of thin white cloth. The boys were still playing poker in the kitchen downstairs, and the occasional laughter or excited or angry shouts were background to Kelly's low moaning and the racket of steam hissing in the radiators as the ancient iron furnace in the basement roared and struggled to keep the farmhouse heated. Outside the wind kept up its long night howling. Though the snow had stopped falling a while ago, it had taken Vinny and Luca hours to pick up Philomena in the city and bring her back out to Long Island, and then more hours passed while Philomena attended to Kelly before the infant was born. And now it was deep in the night. Philomena had been angry from the moment she saw Kelly lying in Luca's big bed looking half dead, her eyes closed and her body frail and wasted around the mound of her belly. She'd seen Kelly and turned a furious glance on Luca, who had hardly seemed to notice. He left Hooks with her to help, and then gone down to play poker. As soon as he closed the door behind him, Philomena had cursed him in Italian. When she had finished cursing the closed door, she turned to Hooks and started barking out orders. She was a stout woman, probably only in her 30s, but with a look of her about antiquity, as if she had been on earth since the beginning of time. When Philomena had finished swaddling the infant, she held it to her breast and pulled the sheet up to Kelly's chin. To Hooks she said, "They must go to the hospital or they'll both die." She said it with calmly, and then she approached Hooks and stood toe-to-toe with him and repeated it. She must go to the hospital or she would both die. Hooks touched her arm and told her to wait. He went down to the kitchen, where he found Luca sitting back from the table with a bottle of whiskey in his lap, watching the others play out a hand. Everybody was drunk. In front of Luca, a stack of soggy bills was piled beside a broken whiskey glass. Vinny and Polly were laughing about something, while the two Poles and Jojo, still in the hand, studied their cards. "Luca," he said, and his tone asked Luca to step away from the table so that he could have a word with him. "What?" Luca answered, his eyes on the broken tumbler and the pile of wet bills. When Hooks didn't speak, Luca turned to face him. Hooks said, "The baby's born. Philomena wants to see you." "Tell her to bring it down here." Hooks said, "No, listen, Luca." Luca yelled up the stairs, "Philomena, bring that fucking thing down here!" He held the bottle of whiskey by the neck and broke it on the edge of the table, sending a shower of whiskey and glass all over the players. The two Poles jumped up cursing, while Jojo, Vinny, and Polly slid back from the table but kept their seats. The Poles looked dumbfounded. Their eyes went from Luca to their money, now drenched in whiskey. Behind them, Philomena appeared at the foot of the stairs, holding the infant close to her chest. Luca told the Poles to take their money and get out. To Philomena, he said, "Bring that thing down to the basement and throw it in the furnace, or bring it over here." He held the broken bottle up. "And let me cut its throat." Gorski, the tall Pole, the older guy, said, "Now wait a minute." Yet he took a single step around the table toward Luca before he stopped. Luca, watching Gorski, said to everybody and to no one, "Cowards!" Gorski laughed as if he finally got the joke and said, "You're not going to really harm the baby." Luca said, "Take your money and get out." Eddie Jaworski, the other Pole, said, "Sure," and he went about quickly stuffing bills in his pocket. Gorski, after a second, joined him. To Eddie, Gorski said, "He's not really going to harm a newborn infant." "You too," Luca said to his boys. "All of you get out." Philomena, clutching the infant, stood with her back to the wall and watched as everyone except Hooks and Luca gathered their money and bundled up their heavy clothes and left the farmhouse. Each time the door opened, a blast of icy wind bowled its way into the kitchen. Philomena covered the infant with her shawl and held it close, trying to protect it from the cold. When the rest of the card players were gone, Hooks said to Luca, "Boss, let me take them to the hospital, huh?" Luca remained seated, holding the broken whiskey bottle by its neck. He looked at Hooks as if he was trying to replace him. He blinked and wiped a patina of sweat from his forehead. To Philomena, Luca said, "Didn't you hear me? Take that thing down to the basement and throw it in the furnace, or else bring it here and let me cut its throat." Philomena said, "The baby is born too soon. You have to take him to the hospital." She spoke as she hadn't heard anything Luca said. She added, "The mother too, both of them." When Luca got up from the seat with the broken bottle in his hand, Philomena said, the words rushing out of her, "This is your baby. He's born too soon. Take him to the hospital, him and his mother." She held the infant tightly and pressed herself back against the wall. Luca moved closer to Philomena. When he was hovering over her, he looked down for the first time at the bundle of swaddling in her arms. He lifted the whiskey bottle to his chin, and Hooks stopped between him and Philomena put his hand on Luca's chest. Boss, Hook said. With his left, Luca threw a single swift punch that dazed Hooks and stood him up while his arms dropped to his sides like a pair of weights. Luca shifted the bottle to his left hand and leaned back and put his weight behind a right to Hook's head. Hooks went down like the dead, landing on his back with his arms thrown out to the side of him. Madre de Dio, Philomena said. Luca said, I'm going to tell you one more time, and if you don't do what I say, I'm going to cut your throat from ear to ear. Take that thing down to the basement and throw it in the furnace. Philomena, shaking, unwrapped a layer of swaddling from the infant, exposing its tiny, wrinkled face and a little piece of its chest. She showed it to Luca. Here, she said, holding the infant out toward Luca. If you're the father, you take it. It's your baby. Luca looked at the infant, his face expressionless. It might be the father. I might be the father, he said, but it doesn't matter. I don't want any of that race to live. Philomena looked confused. Here, she said again, offering Luca the infant. You take it. You take it. Luca began to raise the broken bottle, then stopped. I don't want to take it, he said, and he grabbed Philomena by the back of her neck and pushed her roughly down to the kitchen, through the kitchen and down to the stairs, down to the basement, where the furnace rumbled and cast off a slow circle of heat. The basement was dark, and he dragged Philomena to within a few feet of the furnace. And then he let her go as he opened the furnace door. A blast of heat and red light shot out from the burning coals. Throw it in, Luca said. No, Philomena said. Mostro! And when Luca put the broken bottle to her neck, she held out the infant to him. It's your child. Do what you want with it. Luca looked up to the furnace and then back again to Philomena. He blinked and took a step back. In the red light from the burning coals, she didn't look like Philomena. She didn't look like the woman he had picked up on 10th Avenue a few hours earlier. He didn't recognize her. You have to do it, he said. Philomena shook her head, and then for the first time tears came to her eyes. Throw it in the furnace, Luca said, and I'll forgive you. If you don't, I'll cut your throat and throw you both in. What are you talking about? Philomena said. You're mad. Then she sobbed, as if she looked though as she had come to a terrible realization. She said, Oh, Madre de Dio, you're mad. I'm not mad, Luca said. He raised the jagged edge of the whiskey bottle to Philomena's neck and repeated what he had said earlier. I don't want any of that race to live. I'm not mad. I know what I'm doing. Philomena said, No, I won't do it. Luca took her by the hair and pulled her into the blast of heat issuing from the open furnace door. No! Philomena shouted. She writhed in his grasp, trying to protect herself from the heat, and then she felt the jagged edge of the whiskey bottle against her neck. And an instant later, the baby was not in her hands. The infant was gone, and there was only her and Luca, and the red light of the furnace, and darkness all around.